Boss fights are a common thing in the world of video games, although every studio or franchise does them differently. Sometimes the fight might test your game knowledge, other times it's a mindless DPS check, or sometimes it's just a stronger basic enemy. But what decides if the boss fight is well designed or not? Everyone may have their own opinions on the subject, but for me personally, I hate when a boss doesn't have any unique attacks or mechanics. If I walk into a boss fight and see an enhanced version of the same thing I've been fighting all game, I won't be amused. Same thing goes for repeating the same boss. I'm looking your way, Elden Ring. Oh, fuck. Sonic Adventure 2 has you play both sides of the same story, which is awesome. But it's not awesome doing the same boss fight for both sides also. It's just annoying and uninspired. A boss fight should be a new experience or learning block for the player. For example, Sonic Frontiers. While it may not be the most engaging boss fight, every single mini and major boss has super creative designs and movesets. You have to learn or master a new mechanic each time you enter the arena, even though Frontiers doesn't technically have boss arenas for most fights, which nets at negative points because the setting of the fight is one of the most important parts. Let me ask you a question real quick. Would you rather fight a boss in the same beautiful meadow where you began the game, or would you rather have an arena where the boss jumps off the map within the first 5 seconds? The setting is arguably one of the most important parts of the fight. The atmosphere sets the mood for the encounter and is used to show power, fear, or in Sekiro's case, elegance. Or there's times where it's just a small square with a staircase and some dogs chasing you. And there's just no deeper meaning or anything behind it. It's just that tight room for you to suffer. It's actually so wild that such a renowned studio like From Software can have the best of the best and the worst of the worst. One of their favorite things to do during a boss fight is set up a badass character with crazy lore and then have the boss be a simple gimmick. Nobody likes a gimmick boss fight. That's all I have to say about gimmicks. Just nobody likes them. Don't do gimmick boss fights. Rivals are a common trope, acting as checkpoints for the player to reach. Someone who follows you throughout the journey, but is always one step ahead. Characters like Gary, Genichiro, and Shadow are all perfect examples of how to pull off a great rival. I mentioned earlier that repeating a boss fight is not something the player wants to deal with, but I will also say that the rival is the one exception. If the boss is an actual character and changes and grows with the player, then it becomes an incredible experience for the player. It's so passionate and rewarding to finally overcome someone who's constantly pushed you to your limits. With that said, the outcome should be just as satisfying as the fight itself, whether it be unlocking a new location, loot, or even just a rare achievement. The player needs to feel rewarded for conquering something that could have potentially taken hours to beat. The boss should also be difficult. Difficult enough to keep the player aware and engaged at all times, but not to the point where it's just flat out unfair. The fight should test the player's knowledge and make them think about every move they make. Like in God of War Ragnarok, Thor is not an easy boss to open the game with. But Thor wasn't hard enough to the point of throwing my controller at the wall. Demon of Hatred, on the other hand, is the type of difficulty that'll cause a player to turn into a D1 baseball pitcher. The boss is beatable, but it flips everything you know on its head, turning it into a borderline painful experience for the player. I actually still really love this boss, but you'll never catch me playing it for fun or enjoyment. I feel like mini bosses need to be mentioned here as well. Enemies too strong to be considered a common enemy, but also not meaningful enough to be considered a main boss. Except in the strange case of Dark Souls, once again. Some prime examples of a mini-boss include the Panzers from Zombies, the Crystal Lizards from Dark Souls 3, and of course, the Evil Ninja. Mini-bosses have a lot less rules compared to a main boss. They can be repetitive, similar to the enemies, and don't need such a satisfying reward. While it's always nice when they aren't those things, it's more than likely that they will be. They usually won't have a unique arena either. You may just even find them in the middle of combat, or they act as a literal block on the road. I personally find that these guys are here to help keep the player active and get them ready for the main boss fight coming ahead. Every game genre nowadays, from survival to horror, include heart-pounding boss fights. keeping players on edge, or sometimes putting them to sleep. Each player has their own preference when it comes to how a game plays or feels, but I think one thing every player can agree on is that Beta Chaos is a horrible boss.
Yeah, can I go res?
Bro. Yo, get me out.
Thank God, bro.
How? How am I down from that?
Yo, can I get a res?